on America tonight. I'm pleased to take you to Australia for a conversation with Robert Phillips. He's written a book called 2100. He actually has another book out too. We're going to briefly talk about that because that sounds just as fascinating to me as you fast forward into the future. So, Robert, thanks so much for coming on.
Oh, you're welcome.
Let's talk about why you wrote this book. You're an aviation risk analyst. You did that for a big chunk of your life. And obviously you had an interest in science fiction and things that are futuristic, and also in writing, because you know how to tell a really fine story. So how did that start?
Well, the storytelling started when I was about 4 or 5. So writing stories, I think. But what inspired me with this one was wondering what society would be like in the future. And the process of writing was a long one. It went through quite a few revisions till eventually I settled on the book as it is now, set in 2100, and speculating on what life could be like at that time, the end of this century.
Yeah, and what do you think life is going to be like as you speculate about that?
Well, I'm working on philosophy, which may be something of an article of faith. I believe that things never turn out quite as well as you hope, nor as badly as you fear. For example, with global warming and the danger of reaching a 2-degree tipping point, I'd say we'll get close to the 2-degree mark and we'll hover on the edge and just manage to avoid the catastrophic changes, although we'll still suffer serious problems. I think along the way there'll be a price to be paid, and that I think the economy will eventually disintegrate, and that people will have to fall back on their own resources, or more particularly on forming themselves into communities and pooling their resources to survive for some of that time. But I think what might eventually happen is they live in a community-oriented lifestyle for some years and realise there are certain psychological benefits in that, is that even when better times return, they might elect to still stay with a community-oriented lifestyle, and that the prevailing ethos of society will have changed from maximising wealth to earning as much as you need, but otherwise concentrating on being part of your community or pursuing artistic or other pursuits. So that it will become lifestyle-oriented.
Yeah, it's interesting because let's talk about your novel and that character, James Lawson, and what happens to him, and tell us a little bit about his journey.
Well, in many ways, he epitomises the prevailing ethics of these days. For various reasons, he wants to maximise his wealth. And initially, he was actually sceptical about climate change because it just didn't fit in with his worldview of the economy getting bigger and better and so on, until he discovered he could make money out of dealing with it, in his case by running an energy efficiency company and so on. And he became a believer. But in many ways, he did sort of epitomise the spirit of the age, so to speak. But then he's struck down with a brain tumour, and he goes into hibernation for many years and is revived in 2100, and then finds himself in this very different type of society, which is far more community rather than profit-oriented. It's about how he has to adjust to this strange new world he finds himself in.
And so he's in this strange new world, and you can't tell us everything because I certainly want people to get the book 2100, which, by the way, you can get Robert's book on Amazon, Barnes and Noble. But what do you tell us some of the stories of what is so odd to him when he wakes up, I guess is how I'll put it.
Well, firstly, there's the shock of adjusting to being in a new society. The main change, I think, is when he goes to live in a community of about 200 people if you can say a street block, it's normally of about a dozen houses, instead it's turned into a community of a couple of hundred people. They've got their own small houses and a park, and they pool their resources, they grow a lot of their food and so on. And so for him, the big surprise is that people aren't just going off doing their own thing, they're all working together. And he discovers there's a reason for that, in that from time to time, climate change does strike. At one stage, there's a severe dust storm sweeps in. Everybody has to pitch in and help covering up gardens and so on, and removing cutting down a small windmill they've got and things like that. So there are reminders too from time to time that climate change is still there and it's still having a severe effect. Another time there are heavy rains. A lot of places are flooded. Other things he does find, technology is an odd mixture. On the one hand, the tires and the cars are quite thin. It's difficult to get rubber. On the other hand, we've got devices like an emotional regulator. It's a small device, a bit like a hearing aid you put behind your ear, and it can, to a degree, regulate your emotions to stop you from getting too depressed or agitated, which also helps him to adjust to society in this world. Another time, he and his girlfriend that he meets get caught in a snowstorm in the Australian Alps. They have to take refuge in a ranger's hut, and then a number of home crews come out. So there are some dramatic incidents in it, but it's not meant to be a normal adventure novel. It's more about what life could be like living then.
Wow, so interesting. And again, 2100 is the name of the novel that Robert's written. What do you hope people take away from reading your book?
Well, firstly, it was going to entertain. I enjoy reading it. Secondly, consider that there might be other ways we can live our lives. We may need to live them in future. We adapt to the effects of climate change and economic problems and so on. But we need to become more community-oriented. And now and again you hear talk about these preppies, people who are preparing for the apocalypse or whatever. They normally take themselves off to some remote spot. They won't be the survivors. The survivors will be the ones that organise themselves into communities and pool their resources. That is, I think, at times in the future what we might have to do.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think you are predicting the future. I do. I don't want to give too much away, and I want to give you time to tell us just a little sneak about your next book. Tell us the name of the other book that you have out, and a little bit about what that's about.
Oh, that's on Amazon also. That's also set in Canberra's future. It's called Canberra F. That's also a sort of post-apocalyptic world. The apocalypse is when the bad thing happens. The post-apocalypse is when the survivors pick up the pieces. The interesting thing is what happens after that. When things start to improve and people from various communities start to link with each other, it's based in a Canberra setting where they've divided themselves up into lots of small communities, but now, 2 or 3 centuries in the future, they're starting to recombine and there are various power struggles. But that novel was told in a rather, it's a comedy, told in rather tongue-in-cheek fashion. But it also shows the benefit of the far-sighted legacy of one man who will help Canberra to recover and reestablish its preeminence.
Yeah,
that one's also on Amazon.
Wow.
Or with both books. You can go on our website on and you can get links from there through to Amazon.
Excellent. Robert, thanks. So fascinating. I think you've hit on some themes that we're definitely talking about these days, and we appreciate you coming on the show on America Tonight.
I appreciate talking to you, Kate.